Isn't it great that we can come before God just as we are? That assurance that we can come to Him, come before Him just as we are, as long as we recognize what we are, is a reality of worship. And didn't you enjoy the richness of voices there? Yeah, there was a Voice of Eden from Chennai. Visited Chennai, not this particular church, but the Adventist church there, and enjoy it. Anyway, I visited in India in 2005 together with 25 other ministers as part of master's degree. We were going to experience various youth ministries around the world, and one of them was India, what they are doing. But as we have arrived in airport, you know, when this skin color arrives in India, in Mumbai, it is an opportunity. It is an opportunity for all the people who to make business, you know, because everyone knows that they came with money. So, you know, people sell all kind of things that, you know, you can imagine, all kind of memorabilia, toys, handmade bracelets and balloons and whatever. And we were warned not to buy anything. But you know, you reject it, refuse it or reject it once, twice, 10 times. And at some point you feel guilty that you continue rejecting. And you know what? You give in. And I gave in. The fellow that approached me was selling balloons. And the balloon that he came up with, it was on the stick, and it was about that diameter and, you know, that tall. I thought, my kids, you know, see balloon like this, you know, I will buy that. And it was like, you know, something like $3. $3 is a lot of money if you multiply it by 50. So I bought it. And he says, look, no, we cannot do it just openly. No, come around here. And I bought it, we exchanged, and he disappeared. And then I kept going and opening the packet. And there was 5 balloons that were like this, what we can buy here in Australia. Trick worked, didn't it? Persistence worked. And, you know, I'm sharing that, you know, sometimes we feel like it is a bargain, but it is a trick, isn't it? And unfortunately, the devil is a great trickster. He wants to sell to us everything for a bargain. He came to Jesus to sell something to him. In Matthew 4, verses 9 through 11, we are reading the story, but I will read just one verse. If you bow down and worship me, he said, I will give you all this. Jesus said to him, get away from me, Satan. It is written, worship the Lord your God. He is the only one you should serve. As I said, the devil is a trickster. He wanted to give to Jesus everything for so little. Just worship me. Just bow down and worship me. And many people are getting caught on that. They offer high wages in this world at the expense of eternity. And when we are looking at that, it's sad, isn't it? Because then we blame God for being so unmerciful because, he will let them be destroyed. because of their choice. It's not God intended that, but they've made their choice. Incarnate Jesus understood that there is no such a thing like private disloyalty. You cannot do it privately. You cannot do it in hiding, because God can see it right here in your heart. Jesus in human flesh lived in the real presence of God. So whatever he was doing, as if the Father was standing next to him. I think this is the kind of approach that we need in our own lives. No matter whether I do it in the darkness of my room or behind wherever it is, even underwater, like Jonah, God can see that. And there is no private disloyalty. So this is a challenge for our own situation, isn't it? God can see. When you are restricted by something and you are not making the final call for yourself on where you stand, like Nicodemus did, God knows that moment will come where eventually you have decided. He knows where you are going. People in Israel were delivered from Egypt and given the promised land. They were led to dwell in the promised land. That was the promise that was given to Abraham, that they will return to the land after 400 years. And they witnessed God's care for 40 years. And finally they were on the borders of the promised land. On the border of Canaan, Balak, Moab king, invited Midianite prophet Balaam to cast spell against Israel. Midianites were descendants of Abraham, so they were related, and they were children of Keturah. Moabites were descendants of Lot. You know the story of Lot, do you? Descendants of Lot after the departure from Sodom and Gomorrah. So Moabites were children of one of the daughters who made herself pregnant with her father. Very moral, isn't it? So this is the situation that is pesting the generation after that. Moabites didn't rise morally further. For most of the book of Numbers, or Numbers 24, Balaam is telling King Balak that it is pointless to fight against Israel when God is on their side. Really, he is wasting energy, because no matter what he will do, God will protect Israel. That is something that we should remember. We may feel powerless in our humanity, but when we've got God on our side and we are loyal, not disloyal to him, no matter how strong is the opposition, we know, and he knows, that we worship him. We know that he is our shield and strength. We don't need to rely on our own. Balaam predicted in Numbers 24:17, number of predictions, towards the end of the chapter, he predicted things like, a star will come out of Jacob, a scepter will rise out of Israel. He is basically telling Moabite king that only good things are ahead of Israel. Don't fight. And what else did he say? We don't know the wording. We don't know what were the words, but we know the effect. In Numbers 31:16, Moses is telling us, look, these women caused the children of Israel through the counsel of Balaam to trespass against the Lord in the incident of Peor, and there was a plague among the congregation of the Lord. What did he tell them that make the people of Israel trespass against God? He knew, as prophet, that had inspiration from the Lord. He knew what would be the remedy, or what would be the trick that would work in order to get Israel in the conflict with God. What would it be? Trespass. And then protection from God is gone. Lesson for us, isn't it? We may feel that we've got security, we've got safety from the enemy, as long as we will not open the door for him. And they did. Numbers 24:25 says, Bileam rose and departed and returned to his place. Balak also went his way. That's how the chapter 24 is ending. But the 31st chapter was already telling us what was happening. So adding 2 and 2 together, you know that they exchanged word that they didn't record. If you send girls to invite them, don't be their enemy. You know, when you look at the other nations, they were only fighting against these traveling Israelites. You need to be friendly. Befriend them. So they sent girls. And in Numbers 25, 1-3, we are reading these words. Now Israel remained in Acacia Grove, and the people began to commit harlotry with the women of Moab. They invited the people to the sacrifices of their gods, and the people ate and bowed down to their gods. So Israel was joined to Baal of Peor, and the anger of the Lord was aroused against Israel. Amazing. Right at the entry of the promised land. Where are we living in the time of our travels? Is the eternity before us unfolding? And what are we getting? We will have special efforts from the enemy to lure us into things that will put us in the conflict with God and remove the protection that we can have when we are loyal to him. That's the thing. Women of Moab invited people to the sacrifices of gods. Didn't the Israelites have their own God? They did. God was looking after them for 40 years in the deserts of the Middle East. Didn't have the experience. This experience of Israel shows that one cannot be observer for too long. We cannot go into other worship scenarios, watch it, and not be affected. We cannot we cannot just look at it and not begin to participate in it. That's exactly what was happening. The devil is shrewd enough to know that he has the proven way to bring wrath of God against the church. Only when he will get them to adopt some of the things that don't belong to God's church. It suits him to whisper into our ears that there should be a friendliness, tolerance to the world, that girls can are friendly, they don't mean anything bad. And they extend the invitations, and that's what's happening. You know, they lowering the antithesis, which is basically the devil is lowering the opposition. Like, no, it's not that bad. You know, they are singing the same hymns as we do. They've got different, there is God of different images. Did you come across these kind of things? We worship the same God. We've got different symbols for it. Well, India has 300 millions of them. The trick works so well that because people don't want to be different. We all, by nature, want to be accepted. So when we are living in the reality of situation where other people are different to us, we want to blend in. True? So that is what is happening. And of course, it is not just the friendship we develop with the world. It doesn't go that way. It is also our desires to be like them. True? Because, well, it's popular and everything else. There are desires not to show we are different or separate people. You know, Israel wanted to have a king like the other nations wanted to have. In many ways, you know, if you start to dress the way that will not be particularly understood by today's world, like the other people are dressing, you will be feeling like, where did you come from? You know, did you come from the Middle Ages? You know, this kind of thing. People will be ridiculing you. I read this text, I read this text, I read this one. I need to go. Here it is. You can see Israel, Moabites, Ammonites, Philistines, then you've got Arams, Phoenicians, and kingdom of Edom. Kingdom of Judah and Israel are together. These people have God the Creator. Phoenicians, Arameans, Ammonites, Moabites, Edomites, Philistines seem to have similar gods. Nothing to do with God the Creator. Can you see how they are surrounded with influences that have nothing to do with the God of creation? And so Israelites are coming there, and they are affected by the surrounding nations, are they? Are we surrounded by influences from other persuasions? You know, when we are looking at the world today, there is many Christians who are not realizing that this is the situation. We need to be different, otherwise we will slide back into the situation where we are just like them. Soon Israelites began to commit adultery with the women of Moab. The chief deity of Moab was Chemosh. Chemosh was the figure of that was represented as a huge cast iron that was empty inside, and they were burning fire in them, and that was happening basically when people wanted to request favors from gods for prosperity and so that fields will produce their crops, and you know the animals will be fertile and produce offspring and so on. So they would come with the list of the requests to the god and the sacrifice of their children and place it on the burning hands of the god, as to the music that was produced there, and in worship of to that god they would sacrifice their children, and so there's babies and children. That was the kind of deity that we are talking about. Chemosh being made of cast iron, we are looking at that. People would take their children and would sacrifice them into the hands of the god deity. Did we want to have anything to do with it like that? God that is sitting on the chair, and we sacrifice the children to him. In Jeremiah, we are reading these words, and they have built the high places of Tophet, which is in the valley of son of Hinnom, to burn their sons and their daughters in fire, which I did not command, nor did it come to my heart. And all of this began with the friendly invitation by Moabites. Israel now was building their own image of God, and they were sacrificing by themselves their own children to that type of God. They walked away from the God, the creator, the life-giving God, to the cast of iron. And they were, how should I say? They were blind enough to sacrifice the living beings that were before, that they were offspring of them. That is the kind of deities that were surrounding them, and it's not different today. Therefore, behold, the days are coming. We are continuing reading. The days are coming, says the Lord, when I will no more be called Tophet, or the valley of the son of Hinnom, but the valley of slaughter. For they will bury that in Tophet until there is no room. God says, you want it? I will give it to you. You want to burn somebody? Go ahead. You will be burying as long as you can, until there will be no room. If you will enjoy death, I'll let you have it. Your choice. And that's exactly what was happening. In other words, God is declaring that, if they want to serve other gods, I'm jealous, but I'll let you have it. It's your will, your freedom of choice. When we are reading in Leviticus 18:21, and you shall not let any of the descendants pass through the fire of Molech, nor shall you profane the name of your God. I am the Lord. All kind of these activities were basically profaning the name of God, the Creator, when they were taking the life of innocent beings into their hands and sacrificing them to man-made God. Instead of hallowing God's name, they degraded and profaned it. And Bruno Nettel says these words: one of the main functions of music for men is, in other words, for all human beings, is communication with the supernatural. We may readily believe that at its beginning, music was somehow connected with religion. I told you that when they were sacrificing these things, of course, when the children would be placed on the red hot metal, what would be happening? They would be a little bit noisy. Only music that would be more loud and more boisterous would cover that noise. So that's the kind of music that was that was exercised in those encounters. If Lucifer was once a leader of heavenly music, would he be able to use music for inspiring wrong actions in our lives? And he does. And he does. Nikita, African ethnomusicologist, says these words: "At one of the attributes of the gods is that they are music-loving gods. The most common situation in which they manifest themselves is musical situation in which music which affects them is performed." So the different demons like different music. If music is not played, they are known to object to the singing of particular song or show displeasure when performance is lacking in animation and vigor. Are we surprised? The music needs to be loud enough and boisterous enough, and so all kind of thing is happening. When we are looking at this, the environment is basically set up for switching off the frontal lobe of logical thinking of the people who are participating in it. That's what's happening. So we've got automatically we've got praise that is designed to downgrade those who are participating in it. It's not surprising that the God of Bible sets up distinctive worship for Israelites. And it's amazing that he asked to make sanctuary, to set up services according to his explicit pattern. When he did that, in the previous sermons, we were focusing on that much on that, how specifically instructions were given in order to create an atmosphere that would be not suggesting anything that would be leading away from God. In Chronicles chapter 23, verses 3 and 5, we are reading these words. Now the Levites were numbered from the age of 30 years and above, and the number of individual males was 38,000. Can you imagine? 38,000. Of these, 24,000 were to look after the work of the house of the Lord. 6,000 were the officers and judges, 4,000 were gatekeepers, and 4,000 prayed the Lord with musical instruments, which I made, said David, for giving praise. In all of the arrangements, there is so many people that are involved, and you notice one thing there. Who are they? Levites. Why? What Levites are carrying with them? Do you remember when they came from Egypt and Aaron allowed to set up the calf? Levites were the ones who took the sword and basically put out those who were instigating, who were pushing for that kind of worship. Moses said to Levites, you have marked yourself for the service of the Lord. And amazing enough, Levites now are used, and it looks like it is the ones who have loyalty to God, which the loyalty is more approved or more valuable for God than talent itself. Don't you think that in the 12 other tribes of Israel there would be no musicians? But the Levites knew what worship of God involves. They knew how important it is to be different to the rest of the world. And they knew that, that they need to be separate. It seems that it's the loyalty that God is appreciating more. Once the artistic people were ended up choosing to be part of a fringy rebel element, we know that. When we are looking at arty people, they push the limits. True? It is in music, it is in painting, it is in everything that people who have a mind for arts are pushing the limits. Why? Because art in itself wants to influence the minds of other people. That's why we are painting picture, that it will make impression. That's why we're playing music, that will make impression. Which way do we want to impress? That's the point. Roger Moore writes, and I shared with you that that demons want to exercise most degrading forms of worship. So they will be using music that will be degrading people rather than uplifting people. God wanted to have uplifting worship. Worship that would bring people to moral standing, which was lining up with his standards. Alfred Sentry, I skipped that. Where are we? Ellen White says that worshippers of false gods clothed their deities with human attributes and passions, and thus their standard of character was degraded to the likeness of sinful humanity, and they were defiled in the consequence. People were making them basically what is happening. The devil is bringing in the minds of people image of God that is more like people. And what happens? They are rising no further than the impression of their God. If deity has a low standard, then the people who are following that deity will be also of low standard. Let's go on. That was Roger Moore now. The characteristic of music civilizations of the ancient peoples in the Near East have a rather homogeneous pattern. This music, for the most part, had a sensuous, orgiastic quality, then often turned into a mournful lament. When you've got excitement and boisterous music, what was following up was the what? Mournful lament. Why? Well, they just sacrificed their child. Should they be happy? So what? The noise was great. Excitement was great. But it was all cover up for the reality of what was happening. No wonder there was mournful lament. The character was determined by the use of blaring trumpets, harsh sound horns, noisy cymbals, and an arsenal of instruments of percussion, which created a mood and tone color considered orgiastic by the contemporaries when we are looking at that. On the Great Fire Festival of Ishtar, when we are studying that, the orgiastic music of double bows, cymbals, drums created among the onlookers such a delirious frenzy that young men emasculated themselves with their own hands. Can you imagine? No, logic was not there at all. That's what they, and it happened in the worship service. Now, Alfred Sandry continues to say, sedate and dignified music with the noble outlines of the melodic aspects did not come into own prior to the Hebrews and the Greeks. One wonders why. For me, it's not surprising that it is Hebrews, but why Greeks? Greeks, my conclusion is that Greeks were included because they were people who were interested in mind development. You get many philosophers from Greek nation, don't you? They were intellectuals. They were using their brain. When you're looking at other nations, basically they were going for ritual rather than thinking about what are they doing. So that's why Greeks would be included along with Hebrews. That's what was noticed. It's interesting. Jewish worship was different, and it is intended to be different. The whole tone of how they worshipped God was much more geared towards seeking and to understand. And Greeks had the same. They wanted to understand. So God doesn't want us to worship him blindly. He wants us to understand him with emotions, but also in understanding. He cannot. He doesn't want us to go with the flow unless we know where we are going. You may say, but we don't play this kind of music. Interesting. Did you notice pressure for so-called modern music in our churches, in all of Protestantism? And we are falling into it. People say, don't worry about the tune that was used. In other words, look at the beautiful lyrics. How inspiring. I'm writing actual words of a person who spoke to her mother, I gave it in. Spoke to her mother, Mom. This is Hillsongs that is playing. Look at the music, look at the words. The student, our minister who was studying music, and a lot of reports that I get here is from him. He says, the rubbish that comes from Hillsongs, I wonder what people can see in it. So the daughter says to the mother, because mother was opposing the kind of music that daughter was listening to, and daughter says, look at the words. Don't worry about the drums and the noise and whatever was there. It was only 2 weeks ago that I've heard this comment. I'll put it in. Amazing. Maurice Zahm says, let us emancipate ourselves from myth that music has anything to do with morals. True? Judge it for yourself. Music is amoral as a sound of bubbling brook or whistling wind. The tones E, C, and D can be sung to the words of I love you, I hate you, or Three Blind Mice. True or false? Does music influence our morals? Of course, I will say it is rubbish. This is one person that is actually saying, don't be paranoid. Take it, just look at the words. Gain Edward Way says this word. Art is essentially neutral. True? False. Art is there to impress. Whether it is painting, or sculpture, or music, it is there to make impression. So it cannot be neutral. Then Harold Best. Did I press the right button? No, not that one. Harold Best made this one. I take the position that art and especially music are morally relative. They are essentially neutral in their ability to express belief or even worldview. Rubbish. I don't know. I mean, oops. Now, Dorsey says this, the message is not in the music, but in the words of the song. It matters not what kind of movement it has. If the words are Jesus, heaven, faith, and life, then you have a song with which God is pleased regardless of what critics and some church folks say. Rubbish. This is what people are saying. And they are in absolute opposition to what we were trying to present regarding God's worship. In absolute opposition. If it was true, then movies would lose their message the moment they are translated into Korean. If the message was conveyed by the words, the message would be lost in translation. That's why Muslims have the right when they don't want to translate the Quran, because they argue that you lose something when you translate. Because it will be the translator or interpreter that will choose the word that is, according to him, most suitable, but it may not be. Okay? So the interesting thing that Hollywood, when they are sending movie from America to Korea or to Poland, okay, they translate the lyrics that they would be funny or whatever they need to convey. But music never gets changed. Where is the message? It's not in lyrics. The lyrics may be heaven and Jesus, and the music can be leading to hell. That's what it is. Next one. Everywhere you look around the world, people are using drums to alter. Is it lyrics or is it music? I have discovered, along with many others, the extraordinary power of music, particularly percussion, is to influence the human mind and body. So should we be concerned what music we choose? Here he tells us, and this is media. Now, what conveys the message? Both lyrics and music. But the messages can be contradicting. You can have Jesus and heaven in the lyrics, but music will be hellish. Morno says, remember I was bringing up Morno's comment where he says that in the demon worship they were using Christian hymns to the words worshiping the demons. Music was Christian, words were demonic. That was Morno. Manfred Klani's friend of Albert Einstein argues the very opposite to these people who are arguing. Music, in fact, is an organization designed to dictate feelings to the listener. Can you see how words can communicate one thing and music can communicate another? The composer is an unrelenting dictator, and we choose to subject ourselves to him when we listen to his music. What kind of music we play at wedding? Can we play the same music at funeral? Why don't we play some rock, whatever, for lullaby to put the baby to sleep? Because music is influencing. So that's, and I've got another statement there, scientific dictatorship. And it says, the result is that any defects in the status quo become known only to those who are willing to spend their leisure time other ways than in amusement. That means people who don't want to look at or study the influence, they will never notice it. Okay? And then he goes, these are, of course, a small minority and are the most times negligible. There is, however, a certain instability about the whole system. He is worried here. In the event of unsuccessful war, it might break down, and the population which had grown accustomed to the amusement might be driven by boredom to serious thought. People who are living in lullaby of computer games, and tomorrow is going to be like today, in crisis of unsuccessful war, when the bread will be missing and supporting of life will be gone, they will start seriously to think, and they will discover what led them to it, what kind of gospel they were receiving all these years of the past. That's what he is saying, scientific dictatorship. That's where he is leading. So, these words, Clanis, neuropsychologist, researcher, inventor, acclaimed concert pianist, actually says something that was taken very seriously. This was conference where he was taking medical people. He was basically talking to medical people. This is a modern statement spoken in 1984. And he says these words. Another one. Majority is not aware of the influence because they are not willing to take time to study when we are looking at that. They are also aware that the system may become broken when crisis will take place. And we've got another statement. We are there to thumb out nose at your values. We don't care if you like us or you don't like us. We don't like you. People think that Hollywood has principles, morals, and values. It doesn't. So when we are copying what we are doing here from the media that we surrounded by, we know that we are ending up in the wrong direction. Manfred Clanis says this: in producing a melody, a composer places the notes so that they, in effect, fit the outline of the appropriate centric form. What centrics is the reaction to the music. When you play certain things, your body reacts to that. And when the next slide will maybe demonstrate. This is what he measured, how music is influencing emotions in human. You've got here, that's 2 seconds of influence when you play something that is love. This is no emotion. That's music expressing no emotion. That is how you express height. And it's only 2-second influence. That is how you influence reverence. That is how you go grief, anger, joy, sex. So when musician wants to create music, he goes places music along these lines, so that influences your emotions. Interesting, Jewish humanist under whom the doctor was studying, he says, "You Christians, whenever I hear your music in church as I happen to walk past, your radio and television shows and the like, I hear music no different to what I hear in the rest of the society." And then he says, I am actually looking for something different that I can get blaring from other commercial radio station, and with that he walked out. The student was ashamed of Christianity in front of the Jewish lecturer. Reverend Bauman gives the example of something that he read about contemporary music, and he says, the music is indistinguishable from the secular counterpart except for the uplifting lyrics. Amazing. Many of us may not see how much we may be in danger. But you know the next picture. Okay, Tillich is saying these words. Religion is ultimate concern is the meaning-giving substance of the culture, and culture is the totality of forms in which the basic concern of the religion expresses itself. In abbreviation, religion is the substance of the culture. Culture is the form of religion. So when we are saying we do it not because of religion, because we're doing it because it's cultural, don't be naive. Culture is a form of religion. And then when we are looking at that, Muslim writer says, religious faith unquestionably furnishes to the Muslim civilization not only the common denominator, but also it is axis and for a fundamental aspect. In other words, what we are just saying is that people from all these different cultures are saying the same thing. Amazing. Would it be surprising if, to realize that if we are looking at all these realities, many African religions have possession as the part of what they do in worship. It is the phonic expression of psychic experiences generated with the spiritual framework of traditional institutions. That's what is happening. Now, would it be surprising to us that devil is preparing people for an event where they will be told what they need to do to worship? We already know the picture. It's not about golden statue. It's about the participation, isn't it? We will not be invited to pray, to bow down to the statue, but we will be participating in worship. Now, when I was at college, some of the people were ridiculing the situation, and they said probably they didn't bow down because they could not understand they could not get the rhythm of the music of the instruments. Did they misunderstand the rhythm, or they were not accustomed to that kind of music? I think that's the thing. It is possible that the enemy is working through the culture to make us desensitized in order that when the time will come, we will not be like the three men. Then the herald loudly proclaimed, nations and peoples of every language, this is what you are commanded to do. As soon as you hear the sound of horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipe, and all kind of music, you must fall down and worship the image of the gold that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. Isn't it desensitizing people to prepare them for this event? I think so. Worship music without consecration of heart, by the choice of Levites, already that's an indication. God wants our heart, and the externals will come following. That's what's happening. He wants a submission of our hearts, and then the talents will be, we said that in the Sabbath school. God doesn't call the, what? Qualified, but he qualifies the called. He's calling us to worship him, and then he qualifies us how we worship. May God bless us as we are worshiping Creator, as we will, and as we are worshiping him, our lives will be lifted up, and we will be distinct people, his special people. May God bless each one of us. Amen.